Hi, this is Dr. Daniels, and welcome to the recording for the March 23rd, 2021 Home Healers Membership Program. Now, I want to remind you the purpose of this home healing course is to help you not only become capable, competent, really expert at healing yourself, your family, your friends, whoever, but I want you today to take away the understanding of why you are so capable at healing yourself and others, and to have you really get a grip and buttress your education not only with information but also understanding. So I wanted today to have you totally completely understand what has happened with this pandemic. And this is, I'm going to go from the scientific medical point of view. Politics, nah, that's, someone else can talk to you about that. But I want you to understand the scientific mechanism, because this is the same scientific mechanism behind other diseases such as high cholesterol, hypertension, cancer detection, shingles, human papillomavirus, cervical cancer, AIDS, diabetes, arthritis, liver failure, hepatitis C, and so on. So once you can understand this epidemic, which it is so important for you to understand, you will have a firm grip on other conditions and what is going on. So that's the point of today's session, is to fill you with understanding. So first, in order to understand, we need to know what happened. What happened? So we're told there was something infecting people, and it spreads from person to person. This means the R value, or spreading value, had to be more than 1. This will become important later. Now, we're also told that the human can be immune to this thing once infected and is protected from reinfection with antibodies made by the human body. So in other words, once infected, there is no reinfection because the person makes antibodies. Cannot be reinfected. This is why a vaccine that protects by presenting the body with a minor infection, which generates protective antibodies, is effective. So vaccines can only be effective when you're dealing with a condition that, number 1, spreads person to person, and number 2, once infected, you cannot be reinfected because your body generates antibodies or immunity. So this is the 2 things needed for vaccines to work. So the actual vaccine is irrelevant, but the premise of vaccination is that what you're dealing with is contagious, and once infected, you cannot get reinfected. Those are the 2 things that must be true in order for a vaccine to work. If either one of those is not true, vaccine will not work. So let's take a look and see what's going on here. So you see here on our screen, we have 2 graphs. One graph is a graph of daily new cases in the United States. I have no idea what that noise is. It just shows up from time to time. So daily new cases, and we're going to line these up so we can get the graphs like one under the other. Yeah, lined up. Okay. So these are graphs, and they're measuring something. Now, when I was a student at Harvard, we had incredible training. I even took extra courses in scientific methods so I could understand exactly what was going on. So no matter what tool you have to measure anything, it could be a scale, it could be a ruler, it could be a thermometer, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're measuring is going to have what's called background noise. That means it's going to measure a certain amount of something, and that something has nothing to do with what you're interested in. And so what you do with that tool, let's say a thermometer, is you'll take a bunch of random measurements in the absence of what you're trying to measure, and you'll see, oh, this is the number. This is called background noise. Okay. So if we look at this first graph called daily new cases in the United States, we can see that we have a level of background noise. Can you see that horizontal drop? Follow my cursor. Background noise. A little blip right here, but we have background noise pretty much up to about October 22nd. We stop getting noise, and certainly by November 1st, we can say we have a definite increase. We're on the uprise at the end of October, beginning of November right here. Okay, so these are cases. So we're measuring something, and we think that what we're measuring causes death. Okay, so we have here deaths. Since we have nothing but background noise clearly until June 19th, and arguably until October 30th, then any deaths prior to June 19th, right here, cannot in any way be attributed to these cases. These are coronavirus cases. So prior to June 19th, the amount of deaths that we can attribute to coronavirus is 0. And that's just from these two graphs. And these two graphs are provided by Worldometer, which is the World CDC organization that measures and tracks novel coronavirus daily cases and novel coronavirus daily deaths. Okay, so we can see then is all of these deaths prior to June 19th. Yes, dead bodies, no question. But we can see here they were not caused by anything infectious. Okay. Now, what about here? Well, what we've established here is a baseline death rate. So June 8th, we're entering a baseline death rate. And we can see that baseline death rate doesn't really change until November 5th, about. November 5th, we can see an increase. So any deaths from June 19th to November 5th can't be attributed to the virus. Why? Because there wasn't a blip here. Now, you'll notice that with the deaths, we have these, what appears to be light, kind of grayish area, and we have this darker area below. So for the sake of just caution and accuracy, we're going to go with the dark area. We're going to say that the dark area, we're going to take that as real, that, you know, okay, we're not going to quibble with that. Those are deaths. So, but we can see, though, as far as looking at trends, is we have a peak in deaths, no peak in cases. And we don't have another peak in death until November, beginning of November, November 5th, let's call it. So from November 5th, we have deaths going up. And somewhere in January, deaths start coming down. And deaths keep going down steadily until March 5th is the end of here. But wait, here we have an issue. What's our issue? Our issue is the deaths go up. So November, December, January, they go up. February, they level off. So these two curves aren't going together in sync. The cases level off, but the deaths continue to decline. So these curves don't match. And because we have cases without, we have deaths without cases, we have cases without deaths, then what we're really saying is there's no relationship between cases and death. One can't cause the other because they're not going together in sync. Now, what else do we know? I tell you, we've got information. So there's something called an R value. And let's just haul that out here. R value. Okay. The best way to show you this is this. Okay. So an R value is how many people one person infects. So in order to have an epidemic, as you can see here, if each person infects on average, half another person. So if it takes 2 infected people to infect 1 person, then the epidemic is going to die out. It's not a threat. It's not an epidemic. It's not contagious. As you can see here, if the R value is anything less than 1, now each person has to infect at least 1 person to keep the party going. Once you get less than 1, then whatever the condition is, it just goes away. So the R value of 1.1 has an upslope like this. So whenever the slope goes down, that means the R value is certainly less than 0.5. All right, so we can calculate our own R value here. This becomes, that's important. So if you're going to believe these case rates, we have an R value here of maybe 1.5, because we're going up, if you're going to believe that. But wait, the R value is less than 1 here because it's going away. Then the R value goes up to maybe 1.1, but wait, then it goes down to less than 1, 0.5. So we have an R value that goes up and down. But let's talk about epidemics. With an epidemic, the R value only goes up, up, up until everyone's infected, or a certain level of infection, about 80%. And then the number of new infections falls off, bam, done, gone. That's the way infections go. So if you have an infection where it reaches a peak, well, let's go here. If we're going to believe this peak here, if it reaches a peak, which means everyone's infected, and then it goes down, the only way it can peak again is if you have reinfection. So if you have a curve like this, where you have a peak in infection, it goes down, then a big reinfection, this means this is like a disease where vaccines will not work. Okay, just say it. All right, so we understand the R value. So again, we have here deaths and no infection. We have here infections and really not a corresponding death because we're going by the thick lines down here. And we have here a leveling off of cases and a continued decline in deaths. The only thing that can explain this is whatever we're talking about is not infectious. Number 1. So we can tell just by the death that it's not infectious. But, so in other words, there's no person-to-person spread with this thing. There's not a person-to-person spread. This is a common outsource pattern where there's one thing causing all these deaths, but that one thing, as we can see, was very strong here, here, and very strong there, and is going away. So these graphs tell us, 1, it's not contagious, and 2, we see evidence here of reinfection. And we see here evidence clearly of reinfection, where you have a big death rate, it declines, and then we have another big death rate. Okay, let's take a look at the world numbers. They're even more striking. Here we are. Yay! So this is, again, this is from Worldometer, and we have 2.7 million deaths. They say it's a 3% death rate. But here's the deal. We start here, again, this is March, and you can see this follows the infectious disease trend that we expect. R value more than 1, it's going up, 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 up. People are being infected. We reach a peak infection. Everyone who can get infected is infected at this point. This is the way infectious disease things work. And then numbers decline as fewer and fewer people are available to be infected. But wait, there's a peak here. What is that peak? That peak, again, can only be the reinfection of already infected people. That's all it is, the reinfection of already infected people. And so this tail, this peak right here coming up, tells you that what we're dealing with, again, vaccine's not going to help. Why? Because we've got the reinfection tail right here. There it is right there. Now, this shows perfect, you can smooth that out, you know, with your averaging or whatever. And something might be infectious. But wait, what do we have here? Our daily deaths is pretty much, draw that straight across. It's a horizontal line with a peak, dropping off and leveling. So the cases, that curve which goes up, down, up, does not match horizontal, up, down. So these two curves don't match, which means whatever these cases are no way causing whatever these deaths are. That's it. Now you could say, well, Dino's is pretty close. Right. For 3 months out of 12, the two match. For 9 months out of 12, they don't match. So what we got here then is we got some conclusions. These conclusions are pretty darn striking. Any excess deaths cannot be attributed to whatever is being classified as a case. The test, whatever the test is testing for, is not causing the deaths. And any excess deaths cannot be attributed to a contagious element because the R values are dropping. They're too low. And reinfection does happen. So because reinfection does happen, and because whatever's going on is not contagious, any vaccine is not going to work. The condition is not what you can call vaccine preventable. So I would say New York Times to the rescue, but I have to be honest, propaganda to the rescue. So I was trying to understand the whole excess death thing. And so I said, well, let me look this up. Let me go Google excess deaths from coronavirus. And I have just got to show you my Google. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 sources. Exact same headline. 2020 was especially deadly. COVID was not the only culprit. I kid you not. The exact same headline from New York Times, The Tribune, Health Leaders Media, Asian Insurance Post, BD News 24. I'm like, wow. And that's when you know what you're getting, you know, is definitely a message that somebody with a lot of money wants you to have. But that's okay. The information is useful. So what are they telling us? Well, we click this, and here it is right here. Here's the whole story. It's shocking. So here in the gray is a measure of coronavirus deaths. So we have 0 to whatever. Coronavirus deaths measured by week. And then we have, whoa, total U.S. deaths above normal by week. First of all, as I said, for an infectious disease that's with R value more than 1, once the death starts, it should march on some type of upward slope. That is not what we're seeing. So because we're not seeing, now here we have an upward slope. Upward slope, okay, fine. Something infectious might be going on, but wait, we have a downward slope, which tells us that whatever is going on is not infectious. Why? Because the R value here is actually negative, and there's no contagion being spread from this point, decline, level off, to this point. Whatever is happening in that interval is not contagious. Here we have an increase. Okay, maybe there's an infection, but guess what? It's not the same infectious process as here. How do we know? This R value slope is different from that R value slope. So we know then that this whatever is causing this up, down, is not an infectious agent. That's important to know. So what do we have? Deaths from other causes. What are these other causes? Also, on this timeline, it's March 15th to November 2020. So again, it's really clear here that this is not infectious. The deaths from coronavirus and the deaths from other causes seems to really, they track together and they're tracking over time. So time is a bigger determinant than even infection, and a bigger determinant of death than even whether it's other causes or coronavirus. As you can see, the coronavirus low is here in the end of June, and deaths from other causes is the same in September. So the two are oscillating or changing, but the same thing is causing both. What could it be? Well, here we go. So we can tell by the graph, we know the same thing is causing both. We know it's not infectious because, again, the R value, the downslope gives it away. You don't have a downslope when you have an outbreak. Just doesn't happen. So what are the other causes of death that are above normal? Diabetes, under medical therapy. Alzheimer's, under medical therapy in the nursing home. High blood pressure, under medical therapy. Pneumonia and flu, under medical therapy. Coronary artery disease, under medical therapy. Stroke, under medical therapy. Now, the pneumonia and flu, in this number is basically the hospital-acquired pneumonias is the bulk of this. Flu is a very small number. Coronary artery disease, again, under medical therapy, taking drugs. Stroke, under medical therapy, receive medical attention for their stroke. Sepsis, same thing. And kidney failure, the same thing. So the other causes of death are preceded by medical intervention, medical therapy. Nobody's fallen off a cliff. We don't have an increase in cancer deaths or whatever. People aren't getting cancer at a higher rate. People aren't having accidents at a higher rate. So what we have then is death caused by medical intervention here, which is unfortunate. But what does that tell us about the medical model? Here we go. So we'll tell you the model, and you can, every single disease that they're trying to get you to panic over has the same medical model. What's the medical model? First, pick a set of symptoms present in healthy people. Check. Cough, fever, cold, comes, goes, doesn't kill you, easy. Next, convince people that they are sick and that they're gonna die. So convince them of a negative prognosis, a severe and negative prognosis. Sell them the cure. Create life rules or habits that create more illness, more death, and obedience to authority. Attribute all deaths to the condition, attribute all survival to obedience. Now the outcome, of course, is the overall survival among the obedient, submissive people is worse than had they not received the therapy. And this is why there's no evidence, and has never been any evidence, that medical care helps people live longer. So let's just run through a few examples here. High cholesterol. If your cholesterol is high, you're going to have a stroke, you're going to have a heart attack. That's what they tell you. But you take high cholesterol medicines, and what happens? They create, the medicines actually create strokes. And there's actually decreased survival associated with lowering the cholesterol and taking those medicines. Hypertension. They measure a high blood pressure, they put you on medicines, and you can look this up. Medical therapy does not improve longevity for hypertension. They can at least say that you do not live a day longer than had you ignored your hypertension. Next, early detection of cancer, same thing. And this is why they've stopped women's breasts. They said you can't recommend breast self-exam. We can't recommend, looking at lumps or whatever. Why? It doesn't help. Doesn't improve survival. Heart disease, this is a real tragedy. The heart disease actually follows the COVID model really, really well. Why? Because with heart disease, they diagnose anyone whose body they find lying on the ground. A homeless person died of exposure. He died of coronary arrest, cardiac arrest. Any dead body they find, scrape up from anywhere, is diagnosed as cardiac arrest. And this is dishonest, actually. But it keeps heart disease number one, major fundraiser, and is this real good fear monger. But again, heart disease, again, no increased survival with open heart surgery or any of the manipulations that they recommend. Shingles, the same thing. People are convinced that this is contagious and that they need to take drugs for it. But again, shingles is supposedly caused by the herpes virus, which also causes chickenpox, which also causes genital herpes. So if we understand the same thing causes chickenpox, causes these things, then pretty much everyone has herpes in their body anyway. What makes a shingles outbreak? Answer: dietary deficiency. But again, shingles, convince a person they're going to die, be in pain the rest of their life, convince them to take a drug, and the drug is what harms them. Human papillomawort virus, more than 90% of women, humans, have it. That's why they call it human papillomawort virus. Again, does it cause cervical cancer? No evidence, none whatever. Is it vaccine preventable? Can't possibly be. If 99% of people, it's 94% was the last time I looked it up. 94% of healthy people have it, then no. And cervical cancer, by the way, how many people die of cervical cancer? One lady per 33,000, which means her average obstetrician gynecologist will not even see one case of cervical cancer in his whole career. So we're looking for this needle in a haystack. Again, you've scared the ladies into believing they're going to die of cervical cancer, that they're going to get it, when actually the frequency of it is so low that it's not worth looking for. Diabetes, medical industrial complex has its own numbers on this one, which is shocking. It shows that if you have diabetes, hemoglobin A1C is 8 or less. That corresponds to a blood sugar of 140 or less. Then getting medical therapy from your doctor will create a 30% higher death rate. So can you make a case for early detection of diabetes? Absolutely not. Unequal breast size. Healthy women have unequal breast size all the time. It is totally normal. But no, they have ladies going to see the doctor because their breasts are not of equal size. Doctor recommends medical intervention, which is without question harmful. Arthritis. Doctor gives you all kinds of elaborate theories as to why you have arthritis. It gives you a pill that causes you to either bleed to death or get constipation and long-term worsens your arthritis, or it gives you drugs like prednisone that dissolves your joints. And again, had you just stayed home and put out a heat pad, you'd have been better off. And if you change your diet, why the arthritis would be just gone. Liver failure, Tylenol is the number one cause of liver failure. Yes, you alcoholics should stop drinking or at least drink less, but the truth of the matter is Tylenol is the culprit here. And hepatitis C. Hepatitis C is basically harmless. It will not harm you in even 20 years. The survival rate for hepatitis C for 5 years, if you do not get therapy, is 94%. If you do get therapy, it's 92%. They count that as a cure. So again, they pick a set of symptoms present in healthy people, convince them that they're sick, give them a excessively gloomy outlook, sell them something that's presented as a cure, create life rules or habits that actually create illness, death, and are politically expedient, and you attribute all deaths to the condition when actually the intervention increases the chances of death, and attribute all survival to obedience. And this is why you, as a home healer, are going to get results far superior to what a medical doctor could come up with. And this is what we have learned, if nothing else, from the present situation. All right, that brings us to questions. Can we find the questions? Here we are. Yay, we've got questions. All right, here they are. Bam. I have a friend who is taking blood thinners and has been for a while. She has noticed that her legs have started going black. Would putting her onto a vegetarian diet and get her to start emptying her bowels on a regular basis plus hydration rectify this problem? Not exactly. Her problem is her blood thinners. Let's be clear. So the first step is to get her off the blood thinners. And I would recommend using high-dose vitamin C and stopping her blood thinners. Then once you've done that, and that might actually be enough, by the way. Once you've done that, then you can put her on a vegetarian diet and get her to start emptying her bowels. Yeah, plus hydration, and that would solve her problem. And then as she feels up to it, she can walk. So how do you take a person off their blood thinners and substitute high-dose vitamin C? In the first 10 units of this program, home instruction, I go into it in detail. But here's the short story. The blood thinners that she's taking thin the blood over a period of 3 days after they are stopped. So you can stop them suddenly. In other words, let's say Monday's the big day. So Monday, no blood thinners, and start with a teaspoon of vitamin C in a cup of water, or in 2 cups of water, whatever it takes for her to get it down. She might think it's too sour, fine, dilute it. So start that, and what you want to see is pick a spot on her upper inner thigh. And sometimes the upper inner forearm will work. And you want to take your thumb and press pretty firmly, not enough to hurt, just firmly, and let go. And if you get a bruise there, then her vitamin C dose is too high, cut back on it. So increase it from 1 teaspoon to 2 teaspoons. Usually 3 teaspoons is more than enough. So that's the way you would do it, and you might not need to go all the way to 3 teaspoons. I have found myself, in my experience, that 1.5 to 2 teaspoons usually does the trick. Okay. Teresa says, I'm not able to find a butcher who will give me cow or pig brains, either David or Boquete. Correct. Mad cow disease or slaughtering process are reasons they give. Okay, so, yeah. When I first started looking for brains, they told me the government was trying to stamp out voodoo, and they wanted to shut down the voodoo going on in Bocas, and so that's why they didn't sell brains. And so since then, they've upgraded their excuse to a first world plausible excuse. But the point is, the slaughterhouses are not allowed to dispense brains. So you need someone who can do this for you under the table. The person who did this for me was from Colombia and was personal friends with somebody at the slaughterhouse. And that was my source. Unfortunately, since the pandemic, that particular slaughterhouse, among others, were closed just because, I don't know, just because. So I no longer personally have a brain source. But what you want to do is you want to make friends with somebody who has access to a cow or a pig, basically farmers. And I generally start with churches and work my way through the church membership, basically. You also need someone, I mean, you have to build trust. So you have to be nice to them over a period of time, give them gifts like fruits or vegetables or a baked dish. That's what I do. And so I've cultivated these people over a period of many years, actually 10 years, because they know that if they get caught doing this favor for you, that they're going to, they could go to jail or lose their job. So what I recommend is cultivate friendships with Panamanians. And what you want to do is cultivate a friendship with someone who can go to the slaughterhouse, get the brains, and bring the brains to you. Because the person in the slaughterhouse is not going to give brains to someone they don't trust. because they don't want to lose their job. You're a foreigner, so like you're totally off the trust list. So that's the best advice I can give you on that one. Where is the dairy farmer who is providing Guernsey milk to you? I have no idea. However, I can give you the name of the minister who gets it delivered to his house, and then he gives it to me. So pay him at least $10 a gallon. Thank him profusely, and don't tell anyone else where you got it from. So I've given you his number, so that should help. I'm asking this because I'm trying all of your remedies before I suggest them to anybody else. I should say that I've been taking turpentine regularly for about 3 years and followed the Candida Cleanse diet with the rebuilding diet. I tried the castor oil and turpentine combination 3 times, each a week apart. The first time I felt very ill, weak, had to go to bed. After 6 hours and diarrhea, I was okay. Second time, I took less and didn't need to go to bed, though felt a bit queasy. Third time, I could only get half the dose down without severe gag reflexes. I decided not to continue. Excellent idea. But to go back to turpentine sugar until asking you about this. Correct. So go back to turpentine sugar and stay with that because that works for you. What you did learn here, which is accurate, is the first time you recommend it to someone, they're going to get diarrhea after about 6 hours, more or less, and then they're going to be okay. The second time you recommend it to someone, they're going to feel a bit queasy, and the third time, they're probably not going to take it. So this tells you is you only want to recommend turpentine and castor oil when it's a serious condition and you're pretty sure you're not going to have to recommend it a second time. So this is the way I test stuff out, and I would recommend everyone test things out. But that's what you learned. Now, you were late taking this to test it. You didn't need it because you're feeling fine. So, but this is how you test stuff. And so now you know when you recommend this to someone, should you decide to, that you know it's going to be around 6 hours, they're going to get diarrhea, and they're going to be okay. That's the first time they take it. And they're actually going to be much improved if you've recommended it for the right case, which would be severe constipation with fever or pain. The second time, hopefully you're not going to need it, because once they take it the first time and clear themselves out, then you're going to get them on a good diet, you're going to get them hydrated, and you're not going to need the second or third time. So that's the lesson that you learned here, should have learned, and that's accurate. That's true. And that's why I do not recommend castor oil and turpentine out the gate or as a start or whatever. The reasons for your reaction is because that's the way it is. The Silky Chicken recipe is not available. Would you please review the recipe? Okay, so that has been uploaded. The key concept for the Silky Chicken recipe is I would cut the chicken into pieces before I cook it. That's the key concept. Other concept is all the herbs that are hard, soak them in water for 5 minutes before you boil them. And I would boil them separately because I don't like the flavor of them. The dried hard ones. And it makes the eating experience difficult. Okay, I am almost through the first 10 sessions of your course and have been attending the bi-weekly sessions, and I'm very glad and grateful that I am doing the training. Excellent, good. As I mentioned to you earlier before starting the course, I'm considering coming to Panama in part because I cannot get the components of the rebuild diet in Costa Rica where I am, alone the ingredients for the chicken or haggis. Yes. And now, mostly because I don't feel there's much time becoming competent in and truly able to practice on whether it's what you teach before you retire. Yes, I am retiring in August. If I do come down, would you be willing to assist me by telling me where to find the ingredients? The answer is, in Panama, the availability of everything changes. And nothing is available in the same place more than once or twice. And each time, I have to personally myself go and look for whatever it is. For example, right now, I have 10 bull testicles in the freezer. Why? Because I know that when I get ready to go look for bull testicles, probably not going to be able to find them. So the short answer is every supermarket, I won't say every, I'll list them in the order of importance, or reliability. Romero's is number 1. Super Baru is number 2. And then the Chinese stores that sell meat are number 3. And number 4 is Bruna, La Bruna, and that's in Boquete. So those are the 4 stores that are gonna have your bull testicles, your cow feet. The pig ears are Casa del Cerdo. You have to order them. They don't always have them. You have to order them. They literally save the ears as they slaughter the pigs. You let them know how many pounds you want. But those are the sources, and that changes. In other words, one of those sources might have it and the other one might not. It's like a game of duck, duck, goose, and it's not reliable. And so you have to, at some point, commit yourself to either staying stocked on these things, or when you do need them, that you're just going to be patient and you're going to go from store to store to store. I generally can do about 4 stores a day. And then I'm like, okay, fine. I got other stuff to do. I got to get to work. I'm going to try again, maybe 4 or 5 days. So that's the way that I do it. It's not, I know you think it would save you a lot of time and effort. No. Because the things in Panama are not fixed, everything takes time and effort. And that's why the culture is so slow. Because you can't do anything fast if you wanted to. Would it be appropriate to submit questions about the location of ingredients that you have tracked down at David and elsewhere as part of the bi-weekly questions? You can do that, and I'll tell you what sources I've tracked down lately. But honestly, what I have done is just what I told you. When I find a source, I just stock up. So I have not had to look for brain for a year, because once I found it, I put it in an order with the guy through my contact to give me all the brains you have. I'll take them every week, all you have. And so I literally fill up my freezer with brain. I'm now getting low where I gotta start looking for brain again. And so right now I couldn't tell you where to find it or how to find it. So that is what I would recommend when you find something. Now, the downside of that, obviously, is if you don't plan to stay in Panama long term, you can't take these frozen animal parts and ship them in your luggage with you to wherever you're going. So you've got to balance that. But the point is, whenever you pick an ingredient that you are looking for, like hooves, for example, hooves are either available or they're not. Either you're going to find them in all the stores in the back of the store, or there'll be no hooves for 2 or 3 weeks. And that's just like the way it is. But yes, you can submit questions about maybe what you're looking for at the time, and if I have an active source that's available, I'll tell you. Where are most of your ingredients found? Everywhere, anywhere. In other words, would it be more sense to be in David or Boquete? That's a hard one, because some things, like cow feet and testicles, are in Boquete. Milk is in Cerro Punta. Brain, I don't know where brain is anymore. Calf liver can be anywhere. The pork cuts, I use Casa del Cerdo because they have the best quality. Their stuff is clean, no antibiotics. It's wonderful. Bulk herbs, I order those from the United States. I've given up. I've waved the white flag of surrender. I just given up. I can't get organic bulk herbs here. And with herbs, having organic herbs really does make an incredible difference. Not only in the flavor, but in how you feel. Literally, they can put so many pesticides in your herbs that it makes you sick. And I didn't think this at first. When I started advising my clients to get organic herbs and use that in their cooking, oh my God, people started healing so much quicker. So, yeah, that's a real thing. So what I would say, especially if you're in Boquete, you can grow your own herbs. They grow like weeds. They're very good. Holstein milk? No, I don't recommend Holstein milk. It's Jersey or Guernsey. Silky chicken and Chinese herbs, you can get them exclusively from the Chinese shops. You have to go to a Chinese store and you can buy the silky chicken in the frozen section. The Chinese herbs, they'll have some of them, but again, even those I often buy on Amazon and have them shipped in. Organic vegetables and fruits. There's no such term as organic in Panama. So I cultivate friendships with people who grow their own fruits and vegetables and get those, or I buy them from the truck that passes by my house. I make a concerted effort not to buy vegetables that are in a grocery store. The reason for that is because once the vegetables arrive at the store, there is a second wave of processing and spraying and all kinds of stuff that takes place. And so, forget it. Do you use tea tree oil for anything? No. Not that it is useful, but I don't. Because what I find is in most cases, turpentine is an excellent substitute, so I just don't have any use for it. Do I have some? Yes, I have an old bottle laying around. What do you think of aspirin in addition to apple cider vinegar and cayenne in a stroke event or any time there is a need to thin the blood quickly? Okay, so apple cider vinegar and cayenne thins the blood in about 30 seconds, so I'm not really sure what kind of hurry you're in here. Adding aspirin to it is going to create a dangerous hemorrhage situation where you're going to kill the person you're trying to help. I would not recommend aspirin combined with apple cider vinegar or cayenne. If you really don't believe in natural healing and you want to use aspirin, then use it. But I would recommend apple cider vinegar and cayenne because it actually reverses the blockage immediately. It reverses the heart attack. Literally, the person is feeling fine in about an hour. And when I use this, the person was not only feeling fine in about an hour, but they went and climbed a tree to get some mangles for me to show me how grateful they were for my help. And I was shocked. Not only that, the person, see, people have heart attacks. I mean, they're not planning their heart attacks, so they got stuff to do. So later that day, she had made an appointment with her son that they were going to go out to the countryside for a ride. And so because I fixed her heart attack and she felt perfectly fine, she climbed a tree, gave me some mangos as a gift, and then got ready and went out with her son for they call it pasear, for a ride through the countryside. So that is just how miraculous apple cider vinegar and cayenne is. So don't sell yourself short that you need some kind of pharmaceutical backup. No, you don't. And again, if you show up with apple cider vinegar and cayenne, it's on the spot within, I would say, even 20 minutes of when the heart attack or stroke begins, boom, you've got it reversed. And obviously follow it up with lots of water because dehydration was the original cause. You said that Lyme disease is really syphilis from vaccines and that the children who had some severe symptoms in Lyme, Connecticut were all 3-year-olds, thus showing the connection with vaccines. That is not what I remembered. Whoa. Were you there in 1978? Were you going to medical lectures? And I checked. I'm not sure what you checked. Both children and adults reported illness. I saw references to children 7 and 10 years of age and adults as well. So what I would recommend you look up is juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. That was the problem. The problem was juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And what happened was there was an epidemic of juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, this does not affect adults, in Lyme, Connecticut. And that's when they had to haul out this researcher and put forth this whole Lyme theory. And in 1978, I actually went to Harvard Medical School, sat right there in the auditorium where the researcher was presenting his findings, that this is Lyme disease. And so that's my reference point. So I would say if you want to look up that piece, look up juvenile rheumatoid arthritis and find references in the 1975 to 1980 as a publication date. As you know, and as you can see from the evolving situation with COVID, everything is being rewritten, right? So when we first started, COVID was a cough and a fever, and now it can have long-term effects lasting years and years. And now COVID can cause diabetes. And so the story gets obfuscated. That means papered over and expanded and embellished, just like the lies of a 6-year-old. So you want to go back to the kernel of what prompted this. So I had Lyme disease, and the cause of death for my husband was complications from Lyme disease. So I'd like to have a deeper understanding of your approach. So you can watch my show, which is, I have a few radio shows on Lyme, which go into pretty good detail. So syphilis does make sense to me. In fact, I thought at the time my symptoms were all the symptoms of that disease. They were. Syphilis and Lyme and rheumatoid arthritis all have identical symptoms. In fact, you can look it up. It's called The Great Pretender. Google that, The Great Pretender. And look up The Great Imitator. Now, you know pretender and imitator are the same thing. And you'll see that syphilis and Lyme and rheumatoid arthritis come up. So there's your circumstantial evidence right there. However, what about the evidence that syphilis contaminates vaccines? I came up with that when I was trying to research syphilis and how turpentine was used to cure syphilis. And I uncovered those documents. And so those documents are all before 1900. So you can find them on the internet if they're not, if they haven't been removed yet. Do you recommend any reading that would be helpful? It's really, really important to go back and read what was being written at the time during that day, because everything is edited, censored, and rewritten. And, you know, I went to medical school 1979 to 83, and they have rewritten diseases so much that it's ridiculous, and it's just an arbitrary rewriting of what really happened. I know several people diagnosed with Lyme disease and would be open to your suggestions, but I want to get my facts straight. Right, so go back and read those things. And also, anyone who tells you they have Lyme disease, ask them how many ticks they removed and when. And if they tell you, oh, I didn't remove any ticks, they may have Lyme. They didn't get it from a tick. Because ticks, once they burrow in and bite you, they do not have the ability to remove themselves. The only way for a tick, if it's bitten you, to get out is by you pulling it out with pliers. And so I would say most people with Lyme disease have never been bitten by a tick. The other things, I used to live in northern Wisconsin. Northern Wisconsin, you walk across the street and you've got ticks hanging off you, biting you. It was just that bad. Tick country. And I lived there from 1984, 85, 1985, 86, and part of 87. Yeah. I got lots of ticks on me. And just walking from the car to the house. I mean, there's so much greenery everywhere. Did I get Lyme disease? No. Did I ever get a rash? No. Did I ever get a fever? No. Did anyone in my medical practice ever get that? No. I was there for 3 years in the 80s. And so Lyme disease, again, if you look at where ticks are endemic, there's no Lyme disease. You look where people have Lyme disease, there's no ticks. So if you believe in Lyme, that's okay. There's no epidemiological evidence that it's caused by a tick. Now, you and your husband both have it. Could it be sexually transmitted? Well, there you go. Take us back to syphilis. But the point here is the Lyme story is fake, it's false, it's irrelevant. And if you have Lyme, a disease with identical symptoms to syphilis, why do you need to create a new name and a new disease? Answer, because the word syphilis is so stigmatized. And so Lyme, oh wait, spirochete present. Oh, that's interesting. So Lyme disease, syphilis tests are positive. Every test for syphilis that's positive in syphilis is also positive in Lyme disease. So again, you can always believe what you want, but that's the deal. Now, a lot of people with Lyme disease have negative syphilis tests. Guess what? A lot of folks with syphilis have negative syphilis tests. It depends on what stage of syphilis you're in. Stage 1, 2, 3, or 4. What is the recipe for homemade mustard? Homemade mustard recipe is so simple. It's just, I am so shocked that I never made mustard before, but it was just ignorance. So when I make mustard, I make a half gallon at a time, and I make mustard once a year. So 1 cup of mustard seed makes a quart of mustard. So there's the recipe right there. So it's a cup of mustard seed, a cup and a half of vinegar, enough water to fill up the quart, and a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of turmeric, and that's it. Let it set for at least 2 days, up to a month, because sometimes I get busy, I don't get back to it. But I think the best for flavor is to let it set for about 2 to 7 days. And when I said let it set for a month, it gets a little weak. Anyway, once you've let it set, you put it in a blender, blend it up, bam, boom, done. Taste it and see if you want more salt in it. Now, you're going to see on the internet where, oh, you're going to add some garlic, You can add that stuff if you want to, but then you have to refrigerate it. So I just add the dried herbs to it, so then I don't have to refrigerate it. So my mustard is stored on the shelf at room temperature. It does not take up valuable refrigerator space, because all the other stuff that I make, my salad dressing that I make homemade, and different sauces take up a lot of space in my refrigerator. My hot sauce, for example, has to be refrigerated. So I don't add extras or any fresh herbs to my mustard because I don't want to have to refrigerate it. But that's the mustard recipe. It's super simple. When you recommend that castor oil be put in the lower half of the body, how should it be put on? A light film like a lotion that will be absorbed? No, slather it on. Or thickly, so that eventually it will need to be wiped off. No, it never needs to be wiped off. You just put on enough clothes so you don't ruin every piece of furniture in your house. If the latter, have you figured out any tricks for not getting castor oil over everything? Yes, put on clothes that cover you and limit yourself to where you're going to be in the house. So for example, I really like my upholstered furniture in the living room, so I do not sit on that when I put castor oil all over me. So I sit instead on leather chair or plastic seating. That's what I do. The other thing is the bedding. So if you're using castor oil on your body, then you're probably going to get some on your bed sheets, which is unfortunate because it cannot be removed, and you're just going to have to just sacrifice the bed sheets and just throw them away and buy a new set every now and then. So I like to put on my castor oil in the morning and ruin my clothes, because that way at night I don't ruin my bed sheets so much. And also, I'm in the tropics and it's hot enough at night. I don't need castor oil all over me, making me feel hot and sticky. But again, that's because I'm in the tropics. If you're in the northern climate where it is colder, you might want to put your castor oil on before bedtime because it'll help you feel warmer at night. Which commercial bitters do you recommend while gathering ingredients for home bitters? I recommend either, my number one recommendation is Strong Water Orange Bitters. That's the manufacturer, Strong Water, and Orange Bitters, the type. Because they make several types, which I have tried. But the Strong Water Orange Bitters are the best, so that's what I recommend. Or Campari. Campari bitters have a bit of sweetener in them, but they're palatable, unlike the other bitters. Then there's Angostura bitters. Angostura bitters is a secret Jamaican herbs blend. They are also good. So those are the 3 that I would recommend. You still recommend coffee enemas while one is taking bitters? Absolutely, because the bitters help you dump the bile into your intestine. But that bile, filled with incredibly powerful crap, may not make it to the other end. If it doesn't, it gets reabsorbed, and then you get miserable. So I would definitely recommend, if you're taking bitters, at least definitely poop 3 times a day. And you may want to add coffee enemas. You don't have to, but you may want to. Recipes for beef tongue, beef foot. Okay, so beef tongue and beef foot. You can just throw in bull testicles in this one too. I have spent hundreds of hours developing recipes and instructions for cooking these things. In other words, I've tried out recipes. No, that one's no good. Oh, no, I can't recommend that. And different recipes. And I finally come to the conclusion, after hundreds of hours, that the best way to cook beef tongue or beef foot or bull testicles is to take the whole thing, pressure cook it for 2 hours, and if it's beef foot, actually all of them the same thing, just enough water to cover half of it, but pressure cook it for 2 hours. Drain it. For the beef tongue, you have to peel it and slice it perpendicular to the long axis. For the beef foot, remove the bones, and I suck them for good measure to make sure I get all the goodness out of them. And the solid part, chop up. The liquid part, set aside. For all of these, you chop up the solid part, set the liquid aside. Same with the bull testicles. All right, so now whatever it is you've just chosen to cook, you've cooked it 2 hours in the pressure cooker. You can throw in salt or bay leaf if you want to, or not, it doesn't matter. And with the beef tongue, you have to peel it and throw away the peeling, which is leather. I've tried to use it. I have found no use for it. Okay. All right, so now you have it all cut up. For the, I'm just going to tell you the general sauce to put it. The general sauce is this. Tomato sauce. I simmer my own. I get some tomatoes, puree them, and simmer them down, and they're always in the freezer in certain packets. So you take out a packet, and you add to it the flavoring of your choice, whatever you like, or whatever your client likes. It can be yellow curry. It can be ras el hanout. It can be Italian seasoning. It can be chili powder. You get the picture. So you want the person to flavor it with whatever herb blend they like. Then you add the chopped up solids to it and a little bit of the sauce, of the broth. Heat it up. Boom. Done. That's it. So what I do then, when I cook beef tongue, is I cook it as I described. I slice it up. I freeze the slices in a Ziploc bag flat so I can pull out a few, throw them in a pot, put it in a Ziploc bag of my tomato sauce, a spoon of herbs. Dinner is served. Put that over rice. Ditto for beef foot, ditto for bull testicles. And the broth, I freeze the broth separately in like 1 cup or 2 cup Ziplocs flat. Label it please so you know what you got. And I'll add that when I'm cooking rice. I will add that to thin out any sauces. But I generously reach for that in my cooking. But that's the way to do it. Now, oxtail or osso buco. I'm not a fan of either of these because they're a little heavy on the meat and not as much connective tissue as I like. However, a lot of people object to pork. So when you're going to use something to build strength and build muscle, pork, you can't beat pork for that. There is nothing better than ham hocks. You feed a person ham hocks day after day after day, you're going to build a power lifter. You're going to build a person who's physically strong. So I generally recommend oxtail or osso buco when the person is resistant to pork. But I do sometimes eat oxtail, I say 3 times a year. Osso buco, once a year, once every other year. But why don't I eat it? Because I'm eating something stronger. I'm eating the ham hocks, or I'm eating the beef foot, or I'm eating, I got something else I'm working on. And again, I push myself to do gymnastics and those kinds of things. So I really need stuff that's going to make me stronger. So that's why I don't bother with osso buco, personally. And again, if you're working with someone who's frail, they have muscle wasting, whatever, I wouldn't give them osso buco unless they've already refused ham hocks or they've refused beef foot. What remedies or supplements does Dr. Daniels no longer use or has replaced since she recorded the basic course? I no longer use milk thistle, and it's not because I don't think it's good. Well, actually, I don't use milk thistle because I've really replaced it with the bitters. I don't use liver flushes. I've replaced it with the bitters. I don't use ACEs. I now use the vitamin A, E, and selenium separately to avoid the additives. And vitamin C, I don't take vitamin C regularly anymore. So the reason to take vitamin C, the basic reason, is to keep your blood thin and flowing and keep things cleansed. Again, the bitters do this, so I don't bother with the vitamin C either. What forms of exercise does she recommend to supplement the 5 Tibetan rites? Okay, so the 5 Tibetan rites, the problem with the 5 Tibetan rites is they improve the body in the front plane and the back plane. And so you miss the twisting and the lateral planes. You also miss the functionality, and that's why I moved to gymnastics. So what I recommend is the U.S. gymnastics team warm-up routine. I know it sounds a bit much, but let's go find it. Let's see if I can find it. Here we are. How cool is that? The National Women's Gymnastics Program. Here it is. Their warm-up program. And you can go as far as you want with this. What I would recommend is going down a list and do what you can easily do. Jump rope. For me, forget it. If I jump rope, the impact of hitting the ground is too much on my feet, so I don't do that. But what you can do instead is you can do leg swings. Hold on to the wall and swing your legs. This is probably, here it is. Arm swings. I'm sure they have leg swings. Feet, splits, conditioning, kicks. Okay, inline, step, right kick, right. So these are kicks. And bend over kicks. So I would go through this list and do what you can do. And what you cannot do, let it go. Don't worry about it. But little things like the shoulder circles with bent arms. This is amazing. It keeps you from getting a frozen shoulder. Arm swings up and down, same thing. And not only that, this gives you amazing arm strength, even though you're not lifting anything, because it conditions your tendons. It lengthens them so they can pull more. So when your muscles pull, the tendons move through a longer motion, and you can actually pick up things easier. It's wonderful. So go down these and do what you can do. Whatever you cannot do, let it go. And you will find just doing what you can do is such an improvement. Now they say this takes 20 minutes to complete. I would say it takes more than that. But what I would say, once you pick what on this form you feel comfortable doing, you're going to find that it will take you 20 minutes. So let me here's the link. That's the link to the warm-up exercises that I recommend. Let me make it blue. Let me make it bold. Let me make it large. Yeah. Enemas in addition to vitality capsules. Sometimes, yes. So why would you do enemas in addition to vitality capsules and vice versa? Enemas only empty the bottom 25% of the colon. The vitality capsules stimulate circulation throughout the body and stimulate emptying of the liver as well. and help with the lymphatics. So the two do different things. Personally, I do both. All right, that concludes our session today. And like I said, go for it. Really heal yourself, and don't succumb to the sophistry of the medical industrial complex, where they simply take characteristics of healthy people, convince them they're sick, give them something to make them sick, and make them feel grateful that they're not even sicker. And that's the basic model. Period. Done. End of discussion. Any information you hear coming out of the medical industrial complex is simply not true. Not true at all. Alrighty. That's it. And as always, think happens.